Hi, my name is Roger Crouch, and I graduated from Virginia Tech in a MS in 1968 and a PhD in 1971. What I'd like to say to the Hokie Nation is never give up. It's winning is a process of continuing to effort towards your goals. I think probably as I was growing up, back in the hills of Tennessee, and we didn't have computers, we didn't have TV. We had a movie once a week or something like that. And so I read a lot of books, and the books I read that inspired me the most were about explorers. But I couldn't think of anywhere that hadn't been explored already. This was around 1950. And I went to see a movie called Destination Moon. And it was, science fiction kind of thing. And it was about the good guys were the United States and the bad guys were the Nazis or the Russians. And there was a race to get to the moon, and the bad guys wanted to get there to dominate the earth, and the good guys wanted to get there to keep that from happening. And at the end, they went up there, and they made it back, but they had a lot of problems, but they finally made it back. And at the end, the director said, "This is the end of the beginning." And I thought, whoa, I believe in my lifetime, people will go to space. I believe in my lifetime, we'll go to the moon. That's the frontier I want to be part of the exploration of. And so I put that in the back of my mind. So I was probably close to 11 years old when I decided that. And then I went on through high school. And while I was getting out of high school, right after I got out, the Russians launched a satellite. And that was the start of the space race. And then the US launched a satellite. And then the Russians launched a human into space. And the US launched a human into space. And the Russians launched a woman into space. And it was clear that they were way ahead of us. And so at that point, Kennedy came out and says, before this decade's out, we want to send a man to the moon and bring him back alive. Bring him back alive. Cool, man. I want this part of that. You go around the world every 90 minutes. And so you have 45 minutes of daylight and 45 minutes of darkness. And, you don't see international borders or anything like that. And so there was not a big epiphany for me for that, because I already knew that all these different countries, the people were just like us. They just had different experience bases and different objectives in their career and in their programs. And so it was just a reinforcement that we're really just a fairly, united world down here. And so it reaffirmed that, but it wasn't an epiphany for me that we were all pretty much the same. No, I never did think about giving up. I just thought, well, if there's an opportunity, I'm going to apply for it. And then when I got to be in my 50s, I thought, well, probably not going to get picked and I'm this old. But then I kept applying, and sure enough, at 56, I finally got picked. I was almost 57. I was my birthday's in September. So I was only about that 4 months, I guess, from being 57. But just persistence worked out for me this time. People say I'm stubborn, but I say I'm persistent. So I think that's a better description. Close to a minute before you take off, they test what they call the APUs, which are some hydraulic pumps that are in the bottom that pump the fluid, the fuel into the rockets and stuff. And it sort of made the shuttle tremble a little bit. And I thought, this is cool. We're getting close. And then 6 seconds before you take off, the main engines would fire, those three big engines in the back of the shuttle. And it starts shaking you a little bit like you're riding a bicycle down a dirt road. And then the solids ignite. And when the solids ignite, you instantly go to about 2.3 times the force of gravity, and it pushes you, you're lying on your back, and it pushes your internal organs back against your rib cage, and your lungs, which are sort of balloon-like, are compressed and flattened out a little bit. And so breathing in is really hard when you're taking off. But for me, I was so excited. I was going, yahoo, whoopee, going to space today, guys, yahoo! But with no air in my lungs and 2.3 G pushing me back in the seat, it's probably a lot more like, yippee, we're going to space today, guys, whoa, or something like that. So, but anyway, it takes you 2 minutes for the solids to burn out. And you go back to 1 times the force of gravity, and then it builds back up to 3 times the force of gravity, and you throttle back to not go higher than that, because that's the design limit on the shuttle. And in a little over 8 minutes, you're in orbit going 17,500 miles an hour, which is about 10 times the speed of a rifle bullet. So it's really fast, but you don't have that sense. It's more, it's not exactly, but it's similar to what if you're at 36,000 feet and you're flying over farmland, you see the stuff going by, but you don't have a real sense that you're going 500 miles an hour or something like that. So when you go in and out of sunrises, you get 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets a day. And as you go in and out of those, you get the Earth's atmosphere acts like a prism. And so it breaks the sunlight down into all the different colors of the rainbow. And you get that reflection off of the white blanket on the outside of the shuttle. And you get a sense then that only lasts for a few seconds. And you get a sense then that, you're traveling pretty fast. And one time we were up there, we had a full moon. And this looks like the moon just jumps up out of the ocean as you come into a moonrise or sunrise. It's incredible. To me, it's just obvious that now that commercial guys are involved in it, that commercialization of space is going to happen. And first thing I think is going to be tourism for rich people. And then I think it'll get more common, and launch cost will go down, and more middle-class type people will get to go. And eventually, hopefully it'll be so that the rich people sponsor average Joes to get to go. And that'll be good. As far as the technology advancements go, we'll continue to look at new rocket technologies. I think going to Mars is going to be the long-term goal. I think going back to the moon is going to happen within the next decade easily, probably this decade. And Mars, I see maybe late 30s, something like that. I've got a granddaughter and a grandson, and I'm hoping one of them will be the first human on Mars. So I'm enthusiastic about that. But I think the NASA commercial cooperation is essential for the success of getting into space for everybody. I had a real bad inferiority complex when I was back in my 20s, I guess you'd say. And I kept going to school because I felt like I was so ignorant that even though I'd make good grades, I could think of hundreds of questions that they could have asked that I didn't know the answer to. So I kept trying to get more knowledge and not be so ignorant. And then one day they said, well, if you write a thesis, you can get a master's degree. And I thought, well, okay. And they said, you can't take any more classes if you don't do that. And so I did. And then I was taking more classes. And they said, well, you need to take the orals and the prelims for the PhD. And I said, well, I'm not going to be able to pass those. So there's really no need for me to take them. They said, well, you can't take any more classes if you don't. So I took them and looked. I feel like I lucked out and got through them, okay. And what that did for me personally was to realize that you don't have to really be that smart to get a PhD. You just have to do the work and pay the blood, I mean, my message to everybody is just don't quit, just keep trying. and learn a lesson for each time the results don't come out like you thought they would, and use that lesson to do better the next time. And that's regardless of your major. I think that if you listen to all these guys that are billionaires now, you go back to Edison or Henry Ford or Tesla or any of those brilliant guys, we think they failed over and over and over. But the failure would have been if they quit. And so that's the main thing. Gene Kranz gets credit for saying failure is not an option. He never really said that, but what he really said was, we can't fail. We got to get these guys back. And he said, go do it and don't come back till you get a solution. And that's really, if you got a dream, don't give up till you have a solution. And you may not get what you want. I mean, I still want to go to the moon. And when I talk to young kids, I say, now, if any of you guys get to be a billionaire, I want you to start a program called 100-Year-Old Man on the Moon. And I want you to remember my name, and I'll be right down there, because I still would like to go to the moon.